Beautiful day, Patriots. How are you? We're going to talk about a couple different things right now, and it's completely up to you. It's not Q related because Q talks about politics and voting, and that this will solve all of our problems. Even though we laugh at everybody else doing that kind of same thing, Q just does it in a different form or fashion. And so one of the things that Q does talk about is secret societies, a different class of people, a group of people that use secret language in the open, correct? And so just about a year ago, Michael from around the world had pointed out that there was three comedians that said the same thing. And it was their communications to a group of people that the call has been put out that what they are expecting is exactly 1 year away. Exactly or roughly or whatever. It was under the year that what they're expecting to see was going to happen within the year. And we're now coming up to that point in time right now. That's right about now. And people that follow Q and the politics of the Q and the slight evil that goes on in government, because it's so much more prevalent than just in government, right? But Q keeps the group in government only, in the politics aspect of it. So there might be like a huge group in the Q community that have no clue of all the clasmatic world events, weather events that are happening all over the world. There are cities that have been around the world for hundreds of years. These cities are being flooded with torrential rain and floods, carrying people away in their cars in the cities. And it's not just one city, it's hundreds of cities all over the world this year. And people think it's no big deal, but it's like people don't build these big cities in floodplains where cars get washed down the main street. People are unaware of the high winds, the earthquakes. I listened to my very first interview of, he's a famous guy in the Q community. I believe he's from Europe. But he was talking, everybody, hopefully all his name will pop back up here in a minute. He's got an accent from Europe. And him and the interview guys were laughing because they're saying, although people think those are earthquakes, when they're really just bombs blowing up underground tunnels and dams, where all that evil is happening. And I'm like, this is really scary stuff. I mean, they made a real point saying that these earthquakes aren't real earthquakes, that they're man-made bombs going off. And if Q's not trying to keep people away from what's really happening, I don't really know how else to explain it. Because there's more to what's happening. And what sparks this conversation is that, I just discovered or learned something new. I've seen it a couple times now, but when I watched it again, my eyes can really see things, a little bit easier. Because it's hard. When you see something new, it's hard to grasp it. You have to digest it for a minute. And Michael was talking about how very shortly and very soon the word lightning storm was just going to just terrify everybody. Just terrify everybody. Not to mention all the other straight line winds that we're starting to see right today, right now in Hawaii. 100-mile-an-hour winds in Hawaii. I think is what the forecast is. Are you kidding me? Snowstorm, blizzard. Well, I mean, that would make sense in global warming, right? Snowstorm with 100-mile-an-hour winds in Hawaii. But the things that he was talking about with these electrical lightning storms and how horrific they're going to be, and how that we're going to see things just, say, a lightning bolt that would come down to the earth and just stay there, just kind of keep arcing, not just a quick like kapak, but like and how terrifying, because you can't outrun that. You can't go and try to hide someplace. That's some pretty high level discharge. And what's happening is that we're starting to see with the satellites and the imagery of the Earth different patterns on the Earth. And we're seeing that, some of these mountaintops might be, let's just pretend like, say, big, huge tree stumps. Okay? But now let's go a little bit further. I've been lucky enough to see quite a few different petroglyphs live and in person, and then I've studied them. They've always been an interest to me for decades. I'd always go to the book. I was one of those guys, no matter what I looked like, I'm a long-haired dude surfing, but if there was no waves, it'd be very easily just to have found me inside the Honolulu Library. It was a beautiful library. It had 2 stories, an upstairs and a downstairs, big, huge lobby, wonderful desks and lighting. And you'd find me in there just hours and hours and hours. I have interests, and I pursue those interests, always have. And with going back to these petroglyphs, they're starting to make a lot more sense, what's being shown here. And when we see these petroglyphs and we compare them to some of the geology from space looking down on Earth, and then we look at the plasma discharge patterns that were of the tests that the scientists are doing right now in modern times, that these patterns are all making the same scar mark. And when we start to look across the different parts of the world and certain mountains, because see, they're always going to hide the truth from you. We can see these big, huge, long burn scar marks. We can see how the shock waves create different patterns across different spots of the world. And it would leave these absolute arc patterns in the mountain. I'm talking about so large, that would just travel hundreds of miles. And when you look at the petroglyphs around the world, and right here even in America, like I say, the ones that I've actually touched with my own hands, these are big, huge electrical discharge patterns that came down from the earth, from the sky, and just fried things. We've got patterns all over the world of rock that's just been molten and glazed over. What would cause something like that? I know the theory is, it was atom bombs from the past. But why has it always got to be something like that? Why can't it be just something more, heavenly instead of man-made? Should we follow man's truth and history, or should we follow our inside Jesus Christ and the Holy Ghost and the Bible's record that has proof all over the world that discredits and disproves the history that they're telling us? They can't hide the carvings in the stone. They just can't do it. It's everywhere. They can't hide geology. It's there.